everyone. So today's Wednesday, which means that it is stopping day as far as our themed day goes. And yet, I was talking to someone, I just got off a call, and we were talking just about current life, right? Which is probably what everybody's talking about right now. And I thought, you know what? It's stopping day. There's only one thing that everyone needs to be stopping right now, and that is to just stop, to pause, to breathe, to allow. Hi, Michelle. I'm excited to have you here. It's time to stop. It's time to stop and pause, reset, realign, and allow ourselves to find balance and presence and be. So I kind of thought, what do I want to do in the group today? Because I'm going to be coming in live every day because I think this kind of connection is what everybody really needs right now. Everybody needs that. We need to know each other as people. So that was my thought process. And I went, we need to know each other as people. And so I thought, actually, everybody might not know me as a person. And so I thought I would come in here and just kind of chat. And you can ask any questions on this. You can just connect. Let's get to know each other a little bit better. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Christina Fletcher, and I'm the admin over at this group. I run Spiritually Parenting as a page. And I was just kind of talking about my story with this gentleman that I was meeting with earlier on today. And I actually have kind of landed in this work a little backward. And I'll tell you why that is. I started my spiritual journey probably when I was about 4 or 5. I used to lie in bed and just feel this presence of a deeper self, a deeper version of me, and a spiritual connection to divine. I was raised in the church. I was raised Anglican, and then my family later turned Catholic, although my father was an atheist, which created interesting dynamics in my household. And I would sing in the choir when I was about 8. I was a singer naturally, and I would sing in the choir in church. And singing was my connection point. I would sing to divine space and divine energy. And everything else would kind of always feel a little bit over here, where there was this deep, heart-centered space within me. And that was my comfort zone. Over the years, of course, everyone goes through teenage years, and I tried to intellectualize. I tried to form spiritual connection into words. It was always about, but why? And how do I, that was a bigger question. How do I package this so people understand it? Singing led to acting, and I went into theater. And as I went into theater, I went into theater school, and it was a 3-year college program. Now, theater students, a wild bunch. And in that, I wanted to be able to define myself. I always felt like I needed a label. I had been homeschooled growing up. I had been in and out of public school, but mostly homeschooled. And then I landed myself in college, and it was a question of, how do I label myself? How do I present myself so people get me? This was before I understood about energy and frequency, and knowing that if I just felt like myself and tuned into myself and showed up as myself, that everyone would get me. So instead, I came up with massive plans of how to present myself and how to be in front of other people. This was before social media too, so thank God I didn't have social media at that time, and I was trying to use social media to present myself. I would have been right down a very long rabbit hole. After theater school, and after quite a bit of confusion of wondering of who I wanted to be, I stumbled about a fair amount until I finally decided that I wanted to follow my heart's calling again. So after we moved actually to Winnipeg, Manitoba, which I know many of you are from. And when we moved to Winnipeg, Manitoba, we had this really big house my parents bought. And I was about 18 at the time, 19 at the time. Nope, 19, headed into 20. And I would sit out on this little fire escape balcony. And even though we were in the city, I would just stare at the sky. And it was then that I realized that when I was a little girl, in my spiritual moments of connecting to my divine source when I was about 4 or 5, there was always a space beside me in the bed. And I would have a family of dolls, and I would leave this space for who I perceived to be my soulmate. And I realized that in my life, even though I was connecting to divine source, I was also connecting to who I saw as a partner. So as I would sit outside on this balcony and look at the stars and connect to my divine source, I made a request. I made a request to connect to that spiritual partner, that partner in life that I was going to walk with, my twin flame. I wanted to know love more than the depths of the ocean. I wanted to have the world stop because I looked in someone's eyes. And I left this request up to the world and up to the universe. If ironically, I had not dated. I had gone through theater school, and every time I thought that I was going to be with someone, there was a firm wall in place, or they turned out to be gay. It was always this prevented thing of me actually manifesting a relationship. So I decided to have a relationship. I would have a relationship with divinity and spiritual source. I connected under those starlight skies. I would connect under the moon. And whenever I felt helpless or lonely, I would take a very deep breath. And suddenly within me, sometimes I would just hear a voice of saying, look up, Christina, look up right now. And I would look up and white birds would fly across in a huge flock, or something magical and mystical would be ahead of me. This kind of lasted for a while, this kind of relationship with divine, where I would just look for anything that would spark creative spirituality within me. And I would get so excited and nobody would know why. And then one day, I found myself called to go to the UK. Literally, I woke up that day and I went, I'm going to the UK. Told my family, I told my friends. They're like, Christina, what are you talking about? You don't even have the money to travel. Within 2 days, the money had showed up from very strange sources, including a television series that I was working on, which was called Spirit in My Suitcase. I was working on it with my sisters, one was a TV producer, and it was all about passing on spiritual concepts. This might sound familiar. Spiritual concepts to teenagers and young people, finding tools. We were planning interviews. We were doing all this research about spiritual places, and I said, I need development money to go over to the UK. And so that money showed up. This was in 2001, and this was early September 2001. And I found myself on a plane headed over there with a little bit of money in my pocket and no plan. I had no plan whatsoever. Hi, Julie. It's lovely to have you here. On this trip of no plan, stumbling through the streets of the UK, only connected to divine source and my divine connection, kind of looking up at the sky occasionally saying, why am I here? What am I doing here? I traveled, and I would stay in various bed and breakfasts, and I would stay in the YMCA. And then one morning, I woke up very early, and I heard this very similar voice which said, get on a bus and go to Glastonbury. I went to Glastonbury, and that was the day before September 11th. And on September 12th, with chaos around, I walked into a room for meditation and I met my husband. And it was lock eyes, world stopped. He asked me out that as soon as it ended, and we've been together ever since. Now, why am I telling you this 8 minutes in, and I'm so excited to have everybody here still? Because it was a journey of spiritual connection, and I learned that if you listen within to the silence within you, magic happens and it unfolds. And it's interesting because then there I was in the midst of magic and mystery and an overwhelming sense of being so well taken care of. It unfolded. Anytime we doubted our connection, my husband and I would come up with another thing that we had in common, or something else would happen, to the point that we even went to a channel and sat in his living room. And as he called forth a spiritual essence, he turned to us and said, universe has brought you together. Not even oceans will keep you apart. My husband proposed literally minutes after that. And we had been together 3 weeks and literally engaged after. But fast forward then, and suddenly we were parents. We got pregnant really quite quickly. And then our second daughter, was born 10 months after. We got pregnant again very, very quickly. And from being spiritually led, from feeling so divinely guided and being able to find that silence so quickly, all of a sudden, chaos ensued. And I was thinking about schedules, and I had people buying me bottles and formula, and I had people saying you can't breastfeed on demand, and you have to have things in place. And I had my daughter screaming a tummy ache, and I had so much surrounded noise, and then two children. I mean, even this lasted 2 years, 3 years. Kids who were fighting in front of me, absolute chaos. And all I kept thinking was, where are my star lit balconies? And where is that deep connection where I knew I would be guided? And honestly, it took a decision where I finally, after stumbling around for so long, stumbling around of what I thought I should do. And this is what parents do. And this, I was a mom now, so this is what I had to do. All of that noise, suddenly it turned into one interaction with my daughter. And I was there, and we were going to the park. And my daughter was screaming at me, my second daughter, who was the firecracker that she still is. And I remember her screaming at me that she didn't want to get out. And I was screaming back in absolute panic. We have to go. We're going. Everyone's waiting. Your dad and your other sister's waiting. We're all waiting. You have to go. And I remember putting her in her pushchair, in her stroller, and literally trying to get her to sit down. And finally I went, I'm making a child go to the park against her will. What am I doing? Why am I not listening? What does she want? And it was like the world stopped. And that was the moment that I started to really, really listen. And I found that she'd forgotten a toy, or she had a tummy ache, and different things unfolded that all of a sudden I realized that if I listened, we had a relationship. And that was the whispering that Spirit was telling me to do. Make connections with your kids, Christina. Breathe deep, build relationships. They're people, and they are part of that wider perspective that I had craved from when I was little. That is where all of my work comes from. And this is where I am always honored to be able to work with other people. One thing led to another. Another part of my story is that then we decided, from that lovely little place that we were in, of the four of us, we decided to buy an old homestead, this old manse that was completely run down in the middle of Nova Scotia. And this building, which nobody else would buy, the woman basically said, you give me whatever you can. And so we thought, great idea. And instead what led to a homesteading experience it was another moment, a definitive moment, where I had just reached that inner word calling and listening, and then this came up. And what logically seemed like a great idea felt so off. But I saw what could be and the image of it, and I fell for it. So it was a 10-year struggle of trying to make something work. And then because you go into something for so long, still trying to make it work, because you don't want to face the idea that it hasn't worked. We tried everything. We had goats, we had chickens, we tried various experiments with like insulating naturally. We did generator, we had batteries, we had a well. We lived like Little House on the Prairie, I tell you. This is our reality. Our kids would go to bed with their glasses of water beside their bed, crackling as they froze in the winter. And they would go to sleep in their Halloween costumes of dogs because it was so cold. When I talk about satisfying, of understanding satisfaction, my kids understood the satisfying nature of finding water coming out of the taps. They understood the satisfaction of having a fire when it was cold. It was the most simplistic of living. And on that, I am thankful for. I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that my kids know survival techniques, and they know how to make something out of nothing. They understand that at that time we were incredibly broke, broke, unbelievably broke. And I sewed Christmas presents of doll clothes by hand. And I always get a little glow where my daughters now, who are cosplayers and making costumes out of absolutely everything, knowing that the seeds were planted by those moments of little doll clothes sewing. All right. All of this to say is you don't know what life's going to throw, and you don't know how it all adds up, do you? You really don't. You don't know. But what you do know is that if you dive into that deep, centered spark of light and your inner connection to something so much greater than yourself, you know that you're going to follow it breadcrumb by breadcrumb by breadcrumb, and you are going to be led to the most spectacular life. And while everyone's sitting within, is an interesting time to allow that spiral within yourself, to allow it to flow within and ask the big questions to you. Who are you? Who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? What do you want to resonate with? How do you connect to your spiritual source? God, universe, spirit, inner self, goddess, whatever you want to term that to be, is your inner path. It is your pathway within. So jump in and find that connection. I firmly believe that right now, while everyone's sitting in their homes, you are on the balconies looking up at the stars. You have your moment. And if anything's about stopping day, it's about stop. Stop and allow your moment to literally unfold and listen to that path. I now am here. I am in the UK, and I am watching life unfold in mysterious, wondrous ways. I have been given so many amazing gifts, and each one of them, so often I've embarked on them and gone, really? Really? And I've had to tune into the divine and say, really? Because logically, this might not make any sense. And it's always been a, yeah, go, jump, move forward. And when I've listened and followed, that's when it flows. So now I get to be a coach, and I have been blessed and honored to be given the gifts of energy healing and being able to work therapeutic touch and distance healing with my clients. Now I get to help everyone find the pathways for their own inner journeys and make sure that it's your unique one. Because I know what it's like to have the mind chatter and the noise. I know the noise. I know the noise of fear. I know the noise of uncertainty. I know the noise of chaos. I know the noise of screaming kids. I know the noise of kids, girls who will be in such a turmoil that they purposely stamp on each other's feet. Like, honestly, some of the things I've gone, this doesn't seem very spiritual. At the same time, I know the gift of patience and watching and observing and letting spiritual conversations come up and watching your kids unfold so that they understand their own divine timing and their own divine essence and their own divine path. And in these times of uncertainty and when fear is knocking, you're going to find that conversations can emerge. And all of a sudden, there's going to be these moments where your kids look at you and it's so easy to suddenly talk because their noise is simmering down. All right. If anyone has any questions, I don't even know. I did not plan to come in here for 20 minutes, but I like it. And I really want to reach out and make sure that everybody knows that this group, this is what this is about. This group is about creating a space where everyone can come in and be yourself. You can be yourself. I want you to know that your story and your unfolding and your spiritual connection and even your moments of not really knowing how things line up and how things can unfold. And I want you to know that all of that is welcome here. Your vulnerability is welcome here. Your space of, it's so loud, you can say that here. Your space of kids in chaos, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we can use this time for the next step, to pave the space of the next step. I was talking to a really good friend of mine last night, and we just she was going, oh my goodness, what's going on? People are in such a state. And I said, yes, but it came out of nowhere. Again, one of those moments of starlight, right? Where all of a sudden I just went, yes, but it's early days in the cocoon, and the butterflies will still emerge. And I thought, that's what this time's about. This is where we are at. It needs to be a time of cocooning. Nobody says that what a caterpillar goes through in that cocoon is pleasant. It is transformational, and transformational is very uncomfortable because you are stepping way outside your comfort zones and way outside your patterns. And if you've had a pattern as a caterpillar for a long period of time, that transformation is going to be very uncomfortable as you sprout those wings. So, cocooning, transformation. What does it look like? How does it feel like? You're in your home. This is your cocoon. How do you want to resonate? What's that energy? You know, going back to those days when my kids were at that homestead, and we were literally, there was one year we had our goat die overnight in childbirth. We had 2 of her kids go that same day, and we had 1 baby left. And rather than letting this overwhelming sense of loss buckle us, I watched my daughters, who were about 7 and 8, rally around that baby. They slept with that little kid in their bed. They fed it by a bottle. They nurtured it and cared for it and danced with it. And I have videos of them dancing around the house with this baby kid in the middle of January winter when the snow in Nova Scotia was way up here and they had no room to go outside. There is great gallantry that is born out of hardship. And you realize that within these moments, you get to choose. You get to choose your reaction. You get to choose your response. You get to choose your focus. And in that, if you make your focus about your spiritual connection and you're diving within and flowing deeply within yourself, you are going to find that it all opens up and it all makes much more sense. And you get to flow and be given opportunity that pop out of nowhere. And one of the opportunities is that we get to connect here within this group, within this space, and we can connect deeper and more fuller. So, all of this to say, how do we connect further here? And how can I get to know you better? And what do you need? I know already, Julie mentioned, how do you pass it on to teens? What about teens? What about our teens? Not only that, what about our kids? Because I gotta say, I can have 2 teens here who are on social media surrounded by fear. They can be seeing the fear. They can be seeing the questions. And they can be surprised because they're used to adjusting their sails to navigate through a path. And they know that those tools are needed right now. How do you help your teens adjust? Listening, asking big questions, asking simple questions, asking their opinions. Make conversation and the question of why or how part of your everyday life. Make sure that you are simply learning with them. As far as talking about spirituality, your example is what's key in all of that. If you are practicing, if you find yourself getting too fear-focused or you start feeling yourself feeling tight, I will be the first one to tell you that it does not work to talk about it too much with your kids first. Rather, just say, you know what? I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm feeling the fear really drip up on me and take a grip of me right now. I'm going to go meditate in the bedroom. If anyone wants to join me, feel free, but that's what I'm just going to do. So I just need 10 minutes because I need to find balance. I don't want to feel this way. I need my spiritual source. I need my spiritual connection. And then come back. And when they see the relief on your face and when they see you look so much better, they're going to know you were onto something. If you have someone under teens, my son turned to me last night and he's like, I feel a little scared. And I said, well, that there's habits of feeling scared and that there's a pattern of feeling scared and there's an energy of fear that can fall into this. So you have to be aware of it. He says, yeah, it's not scared of anything specific. He's like, it's just, there's this strange energy in the air. So yeah, there is. So what are we going to do to change the energy in our house? And I had that conversation at breakfast this morning. The energy's dripping. What are we going to do to make it feel lighter in here? Are we going to sit and talk about what's on the news? Are we talking about what's out there? Or should we all sit and watch a funny movie together? Should we get some baking going and really make this place toasty and cozy and warm and comforting? What's comfortable food for everybody? Yeah, our family really likes to eat. That's always been a really good thing. We made sure that we had seeds and we made sure that we had gardening supplies in here. And my son and husband are outside right now in our garden making sure that they plant some vegetables for everyone. And they make sure that they are in nature and grounding and focused. We are talking about our back garden. We are talking about the things that we can do in our windows and things that we can do to bring life and energy flow in here now. So, moving things forward, adding life flow, inviting. Ooh, it's a time of inviting, isn't it? It's a time of saying, you know what? Okay, I've stopped. It's stopping day. I'm stopping here in my tracks. I've stopped. And if I've stopped, I invite divine spirit in. The space is open and ripe and ready. Show me, guide me, move me forward, and let's all build into the spiritual essence of who you really are and who you want to be and how you want to show up with your kids and how the tools you want to pass on. All right. I have a meeting very shortly, so I'm going to have to go. But I want to keep this conversation going. And if everyone likes these lives and they think that they want me to come in for half an hour at a time in the day, I will make time of it. Because Lisa just said, thanks for making yourself available. I am more than available. I am here, and this is your space that I have created, and I am here to connect with you here. And all other resources that I have. I have put together a website of how you can connect with me and work with me, or just spend some time in this zone, in the zone of spiritual connection. I'm going to be putting more things together. So in that, reach out, connect. You are safe here. You're safe here. You can say whatever you want. And we will hold you in open love and light and connection. And one of my words this year is namaste. Because it is my intent to always see you as the spiritual person that you are, the spiritual light of who you really are, and meet you from the spiritual person that I am to the best of my capacity. We all have crap going off. I will tell you, there are always layers. There are always so many layers. And yet within you, deep down, there's always that spark of light. And there is always the ability to find the starlight and the moon from any balcony and any window where you can look up and hold yourself in a space of surrender and connection and deep awareness. And I'm looking for another word. It's always so good there. That space is always so good. All right. Love and light, everyone. Let me know if you need anything. And have a beautiful, wonderful day. Bye.